Hey, now what's going on, Star Wars fam? It's your bro host, Chris Ryan, and we are here for the Broaxium Covert. That's where everyone around the Broaxium network comes together, and we're going to have ourselves a nice little conversation. And with me is our bro host, Ben, from the Star Bros podcast.
What's going on?
My bro host, Jackson, from Shooting the Poodoo. And Force Connect. Hey, it's going, guys.
Chris, Ben, hello, everyone out there on Podathon 2021 time.
That's right.
It's great to see you all, Star Wars fam. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited that you're here with us and that you're helping us support a good cause. And we're really excited to bring you today's show. This is huge for us. We're about to speak with one of the premier Star Wars wordsmiths that's in the galaxy of Star Wars today.
Mm-hmm. But before we introduce him, we want to remind everyone the purpose of today's event to raise funds for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's all about giving back, and Broaxium is really proud to be a part of this. Please donate. We know that we've reached our goal, but that's not good enough for us. We're going to kick that goal up. We're going to keep on kicking it up higher and higher until the end of the night. So don't hesitate. Donate. There are some really amazing raffle prizes still available. The big raffle is actually coming up at 9:45, so buy as many tickets as you can. $5 donation gets you one ticket, so buy a bunch and help out an amazing cause, the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Thank you so much.
And our guest has had instant Star Wars classics such as Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, Lando, which is one of my favorites. He's on the current run of Star Wars. He's done Light of the Jedi for the High Republic, and right now he's got a trilogy going on within the Star Wars universe. First we had War of the Bounty Hunters. Now we're about to get into Crimson Reign and Hidden Empire. Let's bring him out, guys. It's such an honor to have him with us. Charles Soule.
Charles.
Hey guys. Yes,
doing?
I'm just a circle on the screen. But
you look fantastic, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, but I have been sick for the past 3 days, and so I feel and look like hell. I'm literally drinking a hot toddy right now to try and make sure my voice holds up through this. But I didn't want to miss it. And so I hope you'll forgive me for just being voice only this time.
Absolutely.
Well, and this actually helps with the mystery, there is a particular viewer of several of our shows that we always kind of suspect it might be you and using a pseudonym. So if you want to out yourself as Blazecap.
Yeah.
No, I'm not Blazecap, although I will say that I have watched some of your shows before. Honestly, when I'm no stranger to looking at reviews of my own work, and you guys generally tend to be pretty complimentary. So that's always, on a Wednesday, something's out, I'll take a look at it. So nice. I'm not Blazecap, but I have watched the show.
Hey, I'm like, he watches the show.
Right. Honestly, Chris, I believe him. I think,
listen, that is a mystery gone. All right. So months ago, before War of the Bounty Hunters started, Blazecap had predicted that it was going to be Kira, that is going to be the character that is going to be the big reveal. And as soon as he said that, we were like, yeah, that's Charles Soule.
Well, here's how you know it's not, because I don't if I was gonna, I don't put spoilers up for my own work. Like, what would be the,
right?
It's hard enough to keep stuff secret as it is, and so I wanted that last page reveal of War of the Bounty Hunters 1 to land, and it did. Like, that was one of the best ones of my writing career, because I work in comics, okay, and comics are always. They're always fighting tooth and nail to get readers and keep readers and sell comics and all that. It's always that kind of business. And so the marketing people, who are amazing, at Marvel and Star Wars, whatever, they love to spoil anything that's going to get people to buy books, because an extra 1,000 copies here, an extra 100,000 copies, whatever, like, that stuff counts, and it's the way that the comics keep going. So when I started doing this, one of the things that was like firm from the very beginning is we have to keep Kira secret. We have to, I will do whatever you want to write around all of it to make sure that part works. And the great thing was that the reason they sort of agreed to do it was partly because, they understood, but also because the core concept of the story, even without Kira, was strong enough that they're like, we can sell it on Boba Fett. And then the idea that there was this whole second layer of what the story actually was great. But the thing that was hard about that, if you'll permit me to go on for a second, is that when you're writing, when you're selling comics, right? If you're Marvel Comics, the way you sell them is you basically give these little summaries of the issues about 3 months ahead to all the comic shops, so they know how many they're going to order. And so in order to write those little like previews, like paragraphs about the issue, I had to write around them like all the way through War of the Bounty Hunters 4 without mentioning Kira or Crimson Dawn once. And not just me, all of the other writers involved with this had to do that too. So we all kept the secret on purpose so that when that landed, the fandom would have a nice surprise. So it really worked, and it was fun.
Let me tell you, I work for a comic shop, so I get the comics like a day early.
Right.
So I as soon as I get out the box, like I don't do anything else. I read the comics before anything else. I got to that part and I was like, I can't say a word and I know too much. I know too much because that it just blew my mind, and I was so happy because when I went into watching Solo for the first time, Lando was like the one I was like, that's the guy I want to see, and that's the one who I'm more focused on. I came out of that movie so fascinated with Kira and her character and where she could be going. And I'm so glad that that she is back, in the comics, and
Believe me,
it's a fantastic story.
I mean, to me, she was like such obvious low-hanging fruit, and she had connections to so many of the main characters within the like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. She was like within 1 degree of almost all of the main characters in the original trilogy, and within 2 of everybody else. So like, she's directly connected to Leia, as we saw in Star Wars 18. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at that yet, but like, the reason that issue works so well is because they both have this incredibly strong emotional connection to this other character that we all have an emotional connection to. And, the key to writing Star Wars for me is the coaxium, right? Like that's the hyperfuel that like gets everything going, is the emotional connections to these characters that we care about. And more importantly, their connections to each other, right? So you write them as if they're real people feeling the things they would really be feeling in that moment. And definitely like having Leia and Kira meet up and talk about like, how they both feel about Han Solo at this moment was just, no issue is easy, but that had a lot of fuel sort of to run the engine for that one.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Charles, you just apologize for going on, or, you go on. This is the crowd to go on with. Like we love these answers. This is our coaxium. This is our fuel. So the more details you can provide about the process, they're fascinating to us. The question I have about Kira is, when you're writing that story, do you start with the kind of the template of what you want to happen and then try to figure out which characters might work, or do you say, I have this character and I want to make it work. I knew that I was fascinated by Kira and I want to kind of build around her because of the connections, or is it more this just kind of organic? It kind of just strikes you like a thunderbolt process.
Well, with respect to, this is something that is, it varies per character, but I think I can give sort of a blanket answer. But before I do want to say one thing, right? So I did a charity podcast earlier in COVID. God, time is so weird, right? But it was sort of it was like June of 2020, and I did a COVID charity podcast and for bookstores. And one of the things that I said was that there are generally speaking questions that I don't answer on these things because they're too sensitive, they're too whatever. And I was willing to push it a little bit further than I ordinarily would if people would donate more to the charity. And so I'll say that again today. So if there's stuff that ordinarily I'd be like, no, I'm not going to answer that today, as long as it comes with a donation, I will. So I guess start sending your questions and then start, giving money, right? Like there's a point to this, right? We're here this is for Make-A-Wish, right? And
absolutely,
we're here to support those genies, that's what this is, right? It's for genies.
Yes.
Okay, good. I love genies. So I'm glad that's what we're doing this for. Yeah. So donate money. I'll answer sensitive questions is the idea. But to answer that really good question that was less sensitive that you just asked. So the way that I mean, there's no way to answer questions like this without sort of saying that I am where I am as a Star Wars writer, right? I've been doing this I've been writing Star Wars since 2015 with the Lando book that was mentioned. And so there has never been a time in the last 6 years I've not been spending a lot of time writing in Star Wars. I've written in the sequel trilogy era, the prequel trilogy era, the original trilogy era, and the High Republic era. I've written in every era that's possible other than possibly the Old Republic. I know these characters. I knew them before. Now I know them so like they aren't really characters to me, right? They're just they're pieces of this historical tapestry that I am fortunate enough to get to knit parts of. So when I think about like Kira in War of the Bounty Hunters or Luke Skywalker, like he's almost a better example, but we'll start with Kira and then I'll tell you a little about Luke. So Kira, it's like, well, I think there's got to be like, imagine if she was the one who took Han, and that's basically where it started. Like, what if she was the one who did this? Like, there's going to be a trillion stories that come out of this. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen in Star Wars 18. I didn't know what was going to happen in Star Wars 17, where Lando kind of connects with L3 again. I had no idea any of those things were going to happen in the beginning of writing this. But then you're just like, but I know there's gold there, and I will find it because it's just what I do, and like my Star Wars muse has never let me down. The characters are there for me. I know what they're going to do. And then it's almost, I am making choices, but they're making choices too. And it's just kind of like, if I were to say anything that is sort of the key to my work being well received in Star Wars, it's that exact thing. Like and not always, right? I'm sure I screw up sometimes, but generally speaking, if I'm writing Kira or Luke Skywalker or Leia doing something, you're like, yeah, that's what they would do. So, and it's simple, but subtle. And if you get it right, people just, everybody wants to feel like they're still watching the movies, right? Everybody wants to feel like this is real, like this is what these people would actually be doing. And that's what I try to do, whether it's Kylo Ren or Avar Kriss, So, but with respect to Luke specifically, like he has this journey to go on between Empire and Return of the Jedi. I'm writing the Star Wars flagship series for Marvel now, which covers the time period between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And we know that at the end of Empire, Luke was screwed up. He had his hand chopped off. He just had his world rocked by Darth Vader. He just abandoned his teacher. Like there's all these things that Luke, that he's in a bad place. Yeah. But then when you see him at the start of Jedi, he is in a good place. Yeah, I like that shirt. I see it. He's in a good place. He is strong and confident. He's wearing that incredible outfit that we all know, the black outfit. He's got a new lightsaber he's built. He's learned how to do all these things that we did not see him. He clearly could not do them at the end of Empire. So there was space for him to move. And for me, it's about, I've written a lot of it already, like in terms of what I wanted Luke to go through. And so it was really about him processing his trauma, deciding if he learning about what being a Jedi actually was, because he doesn't know anything about it really like Yoda has probably told him some things, but not a lot is my feeling. And so Luke, and certainly he only has the perspectives of Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan, Darth Vader and Yoda in terms of what a Jedi is. And so Luke, needed, to my mind, to go out and do some homework. He's like a kid going off to college. Like all he's really heard from is his parents at this point, and now he's got to do other things and learn other things and see other things. And then it was important to me that he makes the decision himself to continue being a Jedi, as opposed to just because like Obi-Wan and Yoda told him he had to. And so all of those things were churning around within my mind when I was thinking about writing Luke's his Jedi journey is what I call it. And it was more like, so I had those bullet points of things I wanted him to do, but then it was about how does he accomplish those things? What can I pull from existing canon, from my own older stories? What stuff can I make up? Like there's some really cool new stuff in 19 and 20 that I think you guys will really like about Luke and where he goes. But anyway, I'm just going on and on about it, but like that's basically how it goes. That's the answer to your question.
If I could ask a question about Luke and your writing for him, in your writing going forward, sure. Did you take anything from what we know of him in the sequel trilogy to influence any of your writing in this fertile time period that we have between Empire and Jedi?
I mean, yes and no, right? Like I think that Luke is in his 20s at this point. He's probably 22, I something like that. Yeah. and in the sequel trilogy, he's late 50s, probably early, 60, let's say 60 years old.
Yeah.
And, I'm in the middle of that time period somewhere. And I just know that the person I was when I was 20 is nowhere near the person I'm going to be when I'm going to be 60. And the idea that there would be like specific references and stuff like that, like, I don't know, there's a couple here and there, but by and large, I think that, he's a person living a life. And when you live a life, a lot of things happen to you, and you grow and change from all of them. So, we don't know really what he did what he was up to when he was like 40. I guess that was his school time. But there's still vast swaths of Luke Skywalker's life that are unexplored. And so, while there are some teeny tiny nods to where he might go, I did not think it was like it just would feel too closely connected, at least to my mind, if it was like, oh well, this is why he goes to Octo later, because he saw it at some point. That doesn't track for me. So like, I think he's learning things. There are some few little bits and pieces, but this is his stage of the journey, and there's much more to come.
Yeah, Charles, that's fantastic. And I think what you've done with Luke, you do for a lot of different characters. The one that came to mind, because it's one of my favorite comics that I've read so far, was actually Kylo Ren. And I think you made some great, some big choices in there where you see him, the moment that we get in the film, which is Luke and him having the confrontation they do in his hut while he's sleeping, all the way up until he becomes Kylo Ren. And there were some big decisions in there, and I think one of them that stood out for me was like, he didn't destroy the Jedi Temple. Like, that was a big revelation to me. And there was this like slow descent from that moment until he did go into the dark side, and then you have this great montage of like everyone feeling that around his life. So like, can you walk us through how you make some of these big decisions around like the story that maybe we have a different story in our head when we watch the movies, but then when we get them on these pages, it's completely different?
Well, I've gone sort of on record in a lot of other, not that many. I've talked about this a couple of times, but I see Star Wars as, it echoes things like Greek myth, right? So and Greek myth or Greek drama often was like really tragic, like the things, if I see it almost as, there's the gods or fate or destiny grab you, and you have these moments where you, the fate of the galaxy in this case is really, it's in your hands, and you are the instrument of a significantly higher power, and you are then, you execute it basically for the good or ill of trillions and trillions of other people, in this case, since it's Star Wars, the entire galaxy. And so, but the problem with that is that and this was something that was true in the, those myths too. Anyone who kind of gets tapped on the shoulder to be like an agent of the gods or an agent of the fates gets screwed. Like their lives are essentially destroyed by it. And if you look at the paths that people in Star Wars take, there are very, very few happy endings for these characters. They almost never get happy endings. And I get it. It's drama, right? I mean, there's a reason that was the structure of Greek drama, right? It's drama. That's kind of what you want. But that's kind of how I see it, right? I think the Force is something that is acting for what it has. It has a goal that is, generally speaking, the balance and betterment of all life in the galaxy. But if you're on an individual level and it like sweeps you up, maybe not so great. And I think there are different times when that manifests more strongly than others. Like when the galaxy is way out of whack, it's when you kind of have to watch out if the Force calls you. Because if you're Darth Vader, if you're Luke Skywalker, like it's rough. If you're Leia, right? If you're Han Solo, if you're Chewbacca, it's rough. But if you're in, say, like the High Republic, where things are more stable and there is more balance, probably, it's not as big a deal to be closely connected to the Force, like we see with the High Republic Jedi. So anyway, that's just my sense of it. But in Rise of Kylo Ren, it was very important to me to illustrate that idea. Like Kylo Ren Ben Solo really is a tragedy. Okay. And so if you're going to write that story, it's got to be like, oh my God, there were so many opportunities for this to go a different way. So many chances for him to be okay. And the fact that there was blindness, there were mistakes, there were misunderstandings, there was dramatic manipulation by truly evil people of a boy, like I didn't want him to seem like anything other than a child in that story. And then, and his own sense of himself and who he wanted to be. And like, I don't know, it makes me, Kylo Ren, I love that. Rise of Kylo Ren is one of my favorite things I've done. I'm extremely proud of it. It was like working with nitroglycerin to write that story, because it literally could have blown up in my face. Like, that is a character that people have, as we know, extremely strong opinions about, as they should, right? He's cool. He was, a lightning rod, and inside and outside the stories. And so I was a little nervous to do it, but Will Slaney and I just sat down and we said, this is what we're going to do. And we tried to not make it too like fan servicey, like we wanted to make it real, just like the Luke Skywalker or the High Republic or any of those people. Like, it should be real. It should feel like this is a real kid going through this horrible thing, and how is he going to get out of it? And you're rooting for him, right? You want this to work. Like, he doesn't, I'm sure you picked up on this, but he doesn't kill anybody until the very, very end.
Right.
And he does everything he can to avoid it. He uses all of his skill to avoid killing anybody. And then at the end, he's just like, well, you know what? I tried and I failed. And he blames himself for that, even though he shouldn't blame himself, which is, again, just layers and layers of tragedy. So,
well, as someone whose first Funko Pop that he ever bought was Kylo Ren, and loved the character, I mean, it was one of the best that I've read so far. So I think he knocked it out of the park.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
So we have a question from one of our Patreon patrons. This is Rick Villanueva's son, Isaac, who has a question, and this goes along with the Kylo Ren book. It's why did the Knights of Ren turn so quickly and bowed to Kylo after Ren was vanquished?
Right. Well, the way that it's sort of two things, right? I think the Knights of Ren they're not exactly like they're bullies, I guess is a way to say it, right? So they are people who like to be the baddest guys in the room, but they also don't want to die and don't want to be like murdered. And I think up until that moment, Ren was the baddest guy in the room by far. Like, and you'll see more of him in Crimson Reign and other stuff. Like Ren and the Knights are a very significant force. Okay, like they're the real deal. But I think of them like a motorcycle gang. Like they are definitely something you do not want to tangle with. But their whole deal is sort of respecting force and strength. And if you look the ending of Kylo Ren 4, Rise of Kylo Ren 4, is supposed to be a demonstration of, holy shit, this guy, you cannot mess with Kylo Ren, with Ben Solo. If you try, like, our choice is really, we bow to him or he cuts our heads off. Like, there wasn't, and as we saw, in episode 9, that's exactly what happens when they actually went up against him. And he was Ben Solo there, but nevertheless. So my feeling is they just were like, this is, he's going to keep things going for us. We're still going to be the Knights of Ren. We'll still do cool stuff. We'll still murder people and steal things. So, Ren's gone. Long live Kylo Ren. That's kind of how I saw it.
If I could jump in with a question. So, we just talked a little bit about somebody, kind of a lightning rod, dark side character. And, one of the earliest characters that you wrote that was affiliated with the dark side was Lord Momin.
Yeah.
At least with Lando and that possessed helmet, and then on into the Vader series. Fascinating character, really interesting to me. If you look at Snoke, Palpatine, Vader, some of the other Sith lords and that have been portrayed in comics, they're after power, but it's kind of a nebulous concept of power. It's not really specific. Momin's a real sadistic, son of a bitch, right? He's on a different level. And it was striking to me, because actually I got into comics when I was, 3 years old with the original Star Wars series. That was the first comic that my parents picked up. Issue number 7. I think Jackson was the next issue, so that's where I got my name. But I took a little bit of a hiatus. But actually, your several series brought me back into the comics and Star Wars collecting and whatnot. Cool. And that character was just, it wasn't something that I identified with, but it was
hope not.
So much. Right, it was so much different. than some of the other portrayals of, Dark Lords.
Mhm.
Did you ever have any problems with, like, did you show that kind of the script to the folks at Disney, and did they, were they like, do we want him like taking people and pulling them apart and then making new things? And did they ever like have any concerns about that?
No. The thing that has been like extraordinary about my journey through Star Wars creativity and telling stories is that they've like come to trust me, which is an like unbelievable thing. Like this is, I think you can make arguments about different mythologies and their potency within the sort of overall pop cultural landscape. Yeah. But Star Wars has got to be in the top, right? In the top 3. It's even hard to argue that it's not number 1. And if you're arguing that it's not, then you're starting to get into things like Christianity. Like it's right. Like it's a deeply understood, accepted, and beloved mythology. Yeah. And so the idea that my work in it has enabled me to tell stories where I'm not free to do whatever the hell I want, right? But the thing that's nice is that my instincts seem to align with a Star Wars overall kind of aesthetic or storytelling or vibe in a way that just sort of works, and whether it's so what is Crimson Dawn going to be like in this time period versus let's make up a Sith Lord who's from some unspecified time in the past, who is a super cruel artist who plays with the norms of what a Sith Lord is. Like I definitely present ideas to them. It's not like I just do whatever I want and then they say yay or nay. Like we talk about things ahead of time. But if there, I can say things like, look, I know this, like, I get it. I know this is giving you guys hives a little bit, but I think this could be really good. Let me give it a shot. If it doesn't work, believe me, I'll change it. But they're, instead of, so they're open to that in a way that's really, really nice. And so, things like the Kira trilogy is another good example, because there's a lot in it that is very expansive. I mean, this is a story that, you guys haven't seen Crimson Reign Run 1 yet. I keep forgetting what's out and what's not. You've seen the end of Where the Bounty Hunters 5. So you've seen that Kira clearly has some crazy plan that involves a lot of crazy people. And they released a preview of Crimson Reign 1. So I don't know if you guys have seen like the first few pages of that.
Chris is going to Google right now. I can see. Yeah.
Get it to me, Chris.
So within that, she starts to explain kind of what she's doing and why she would need these people. But it's a huge, like, it's not like, oh, she's going to go to a little planet and set up like a spice processing facility. It's a huge play. It's like a play that involves, as big as War of the Bounty Hunters was in terms of all of the different people that were involved with it, this is equally large. The scale of it gets bigger and bigger. And so by the end of it, it's basically, you're seeing, a huge movie. And it's in comics, obviously, but it's like this gigantic film of what maybe was happening in between. And I think that the idea that I'm able to tell that story with my incredible collaborators, the fact that we have the trust of the Star Wars brain trust to let us do it is amazing. It makes me happy every time I think about it.
And that's part of the question that I wanted to ask was, when it comes to story ideas, is it mostly like you and Ethan Sachs and Alyssa Wong? Do you guys like come up with ideas and then present them, or to Disney or Mr. Siglain, or do they give, is it a lot of the time they give you these story arcs they want to do, and then it's your job to
Mr. Siglain. Mr. Siglain is just Mike to me, but at any rate, no, it is. They generally speaking do not present story ideas. It is because, which is good, right? Because we're the the writers, the storytellers, and so we have this job for a reason, and they bring us in because they think we have a voice that would be useful in Star Wars, and it's Alyssa is exceptionally good at what she does. Alyssa Wong is just phenomenal. Yeah. Ethan is also, like, everybody, Greg Pak, and like even going back to Jason Aaron and Kieran Gillen, and I mean, there's so many that are so good within this zone. I think Rebecca Roan or Zoraida Cordova. Like there's many exceptional storytellers within Star Wars, writing, publishing. And then obviously beyond in film and TV, it's the same thing, but it's always the same, right? Like it's a sense of this person has a voice for these characters, a voice for this galaxy, really. It's not just the characters, but a voice for the galaxy, and has a perspective that maybe is something we haven't seen or something that's going to work really well with the fandom. And then they kind of step back and let us present the stories we want to tell. And it's only if there's some idea that doesn't really work with either existing storytelling or planned storytelling we don't know about, or occasionally if something's just way out of left field, they'll be like, nah, this doesn't feel like Star Wars. So.
Mm-hmm. Charles, if we are able to crack 7,500 by the end of the hour,
sure.
Do you think? I mean, we actually we like to discover the information when we crack open those books, whether it's the review copies or it's at the store. But so we don't really need that. But maybe you can, I don't know, throw in a crew, a tough ragtag crew of coaxium smugglers that might happen to look somewhat like us,
like a brotherhood, so to speak, of
a brotherhood of
smugglers.
Yeah, possibly a Broaxium, if you will.
Let's see. How about? I like that idea, but I think you guys will not be surprised if I tell you that the list of people who I already owe cameos to is extremely long. And while I do support this cause deeply, I think I would have some. I have to handle some of the existing requests first. But let me see. Let me think about that for a minute, because there's got to be something. So we're with $73.24 right now. So we have about $176 left. If we can get to 7,500, I will tell you something that happens in Crimson Reign that is super cool, that I am incredibly excited about. It's the next story I'm going to write, and it will be worth it. Right. Actually, I almost feel like it should be 8,000, but I think let's say 7,500. If we get 7,500 before the end of the hour, I'll tell you this thing. And it's very, very cool. You'll all be very excited.
So, do you hear that, Star Wars family? Please donate.
Raven, get my pocketbook from under the couch, please.
Donate, please. Where's my wallet?
And if you make a typo and put an extra 0 at the end, that helps it even more.
Yeah. And by the way, if you want to throw us into a one panel and then we'll get killed the next panel, we're okay with that.
It's okay.
That's often the way it goes. That's usually the way it goes. I almost always kill the cameos immediately. Like they show up,
right?
It's a ship or it's a stormtrooper, whatever, and then off they go. The exception to that is actually Lord Momin, who is named after a friend of mine, and he is a huge Star Wars fan, and he is very, very thrilled that he just gets to keep popping up and people like him as much as he does, and it's very fun for him. So anyway,
if I can say one thing, because I promised I was going to gush just for a little bit in this one, but when I saw what you were doing with Crimson Reign, and I see like all these characters from every bit of your writing, maybe not the High Republic, but every bit of your writing for the Age of Empire prequels and all that, from that, like especially from I think it's Chanath Cha. I could have sworn I saw Chanath Cha.
She's there.
I love that you're bringing all this together. I love that you have carved out your own section, so to speak, of the Star Wars universe.
Solarverse. The Solarverse.
Yeah. Solar. Yeah, I love it.
Sure, the Solarverse.
I need that on a t-shirt right now. But I just love that that's happening. And going back to one of your earlier writings, which is probably my, it was like one of my tops, if not my top Star Wars comic, which was the Lando series. One of our patrons is Rick Villanueva has a question about that, and I've been wondering this as well. Because like when I write and when he writes, we have particular voices in our heads for different characters, and we want to know, what was the voice you had in your head, if you did, for Lobot?
Okay.
Writing the Lando series.
Yeah. So something that I think anybody who's read a lot of my work knows that I have fondness for certain like B-listers. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. Let's be real, Z-listers, right? So like characters who pop up in the movies and have roles to play, but they're not really, high level. And Lor Santeca is one, and the whole Santeca clan is a big thing I've been building out. But another is for sure Lobot, and I don't even know if I could really tell you why. I just always thought he was cool. I thought that there was nobody really had done anything with him, and there was a chance to make his backstory more interesting and make Empire Strikes Back, it doesn't need my help to be more interesting. Empire Strikes Back is pretty great on its own. But if there's moments when you look at Lobot and you're like, oh yeah, that dude, oh man, yeah. That seemed like a fun way to go. And so Lobot, I had this idea that Lando, who we always see as a person who is complete, like a loner. And he's a loner basically because nobody trusts him, and he doesn't allow himself to be trusted. He doesn't trust anybody else. And but there's a lot of that's sad, right? That's a lonely, lonely man. And I think that the idea of giving him somebody that he did care about and did care about him and was sort of part of his, his as close to a crew as he ever got was Lobot. As close to a real true friend as he ever got was Lobot. And the idea that his choices, as they inevitably do, cause disaster for that guy is poignant. And so in terms of his voice, I wanted him to be like, if Lando's the big, energetic, yeah, we'll do this. This totally work out. Lobot's like yeah, man, maybe let's take a second and think about this kind of guy. Like his voice of reason, who's not opposed to doing crazy stuff, right? Like Lobot's up for it, but it's like, yeah, okay. But remember 3 months ago when you did exactly the same thing and it blew up, maybe let's do a little smarter this time. Like they're a good pair. They really work well together. And so when Lobot makes that sacrifice at the end of the Lando miniseries, and the things he says, he's like, look, no one causes these problems but yourself. You are doing this, and you, until you realize that and start making different choices, your life will never change. Until you realize that you are the reason, then you're going to live in the shit forever. And basically that's where Lando stays for a long time. And we're only just now starting to see this turn in the Star Wars series that I'm writing, because he needs to be different by the time we get to Return of the Jedi. Yeah. And being able to build all this stuff up over a period of what's, 5 years of his life, where he starts to make a turn from being this kind of selfish jerk to being a hero has been really fun to get to write across, this sort of background element over 6 years of storytelling. It's pretty fun.
As far as Z-listers, and you can blink twice if we expect to see Black Squadron back. Blink twice.
Well, okay. How would you know? How would you?
Well, there you go. See, we don't want to put you on the spot there, but right. I mean, those yeah.
Well, here's what I can say. Okay, I have something in the works that would bring back a lot of different things that I've done. In particularly in comic storytelling, like a lot of different elements of things that I've done over all of those time periods. I do not know if it'll work out. It has not been greenlit yet, but it could be cool. It would be extraordinarily cool. And if I was able to do that, you would see Black Squadron in it, among lots of other cool stuff. So I'm not sure, but we'll see. So where are we? 7404. We're getting there.
Guys, hey, people out there, please donate. Charles just gave us that wonderful nugget before we even hit 7,500. Give us 7,500.
There are enough people in this chat,
yes,
where you can all donate like $5 or $10.
Scrape together those coins. Happen. Don't get a venti latte tomorrow. Get a grande. Okay, come on, let's go, people. We believe in you.
It's cool. It'll be a cool thing. I like it.
See, it's cool.
So, but I don't want to. We've got like 15 minutes left. I don't want to go through this without talking about the High Republic. So
I got a great question about that, maybe to kick us off, because I'm actually in the process of listening to it again right now, The Light of the Jedi, just to, get that feel again as I, try to get more into this universe. But one of the things that I love in that book that I really wanted to hear more about was the different metaphors that you use for the Force. Like when it started going through, like, for Avar Kriss, like going through like it's the song to her, or whether it's the large tree, the depth of the ocean. Like, how did you come up with all those metaphors? Was it just like a session where you sat around the table, like come up with your best idea of like how you visualize the Force? And
no, that was mine, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, that was something that I put into the manuscript, because I'm a musician. I've been a musician for for a long time. And I thought, like, the way that it sort of came about, is if you have, we've only really seen a mythology or philosophy of the Force from Yoda and Ben. And Ben is obviously Qui-Gon's student who was Yoda's student. And so the lineage of thinking about what the Force is has been kind of one-sided, but if we expand that out into a time when the Jedi are vibrant, and there are many schools of thought, and there are many scholars and many ideas, like there are thousands and thousands of them, which we saw in the prequels to a degree, but those things just didn't really get into this to the same level. It needed to be a different era. And so the idea to me was that, of course, there would be different, if you grow up, because people don't, I guess they're babies, right? They're young, but I think that the Force to me seems like a very personal thing. Your relationship with it, the way you experience it, the way that it communicates to you, the way that you communicate with it is very personal. And so the idea that each person would see it their own way just seemed correct, right? It seems like it would be how it is. And so as far as Avar Kriss being a musician, or, seeing it musically, and Elzar seeing it as an ocean and all these different things, and Buryaga seeing it as a forest, it just felt right to me, and it felt like it would be inclusive in a way, and expansive and just right. It's one of those ideas you have, you're just like, this feels right. So that's the story.
That's wonderful.
Well, we have a little bit of an announcement. We just made a challenge to the folks out there watching, and just like all Broaxium fans do, they stepped up. We are at $7,604. Congratulations, guys. Well done.
Great. Okay, so here's the thing. So in Crimson Reign, there are a lot of things that happen, right? It's very, very cool. It's a big sprawling story. It is the middle chapter of this trilogy. And as the middle chapter of the trilogy, there's a lot of, so it's like 3-act structure, right? So Act 1 is setup, Act 2 is complication, and Act 3 is resolution. So this is complication. And one of the complications that happen are the Knights of Ren pull a heist on Fortress Vader. So they go to Vader's castle on Mustafar, and so that's the thing. So that happens in the story. It's a whole issue built around that idea, and it's gonna be what you think it is.
So one of my favorite things is to watch the reaction of Chris when his mind gets blown. So I hope everyone's just like focusing in right now on that. He's very happy.
I'm speechless.
So cool.
That one, it's cool because I'm looking at the like the blueprints of the castle. How would you do it?
Wow.
How would you bring this crew in? Because they can all use the dark side, but they're not all like, they're not Vader.
Right.
Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about it. We can talk about it, whatever. We can talk about it again later, but like that's going to be good stuff.
Thank you for that. I'm already stupid hyped for this series.
Same.
Now what do we get at 8,000 is going to be the question. How do you top that, right?
No, anything for the genies.
Right.
All right, but so High Republic. So
Yeah.
that has been, I feel very personally connected to the High Republic because it's something that I, along with the other 4 storytellers and Mike Siglain and Story Group and so on, we made it. We built it. And obviously we stood on the shoulders of absolute giants from George Lucas to all of the incredible people who have built Star Wars over the last 4 decades. But it still feels very much like we made a lot of decisions that kind of made it what it is right now. So I have to say I have been incredibly heartened by the response to it. I mean, we spent 2 years working on it before any of it came out, and so to have something like that be part of your background creative life for forever, and then have it land and people embrace it the way they have has been just spectacular. I mean, Light of the Jedi was #1 New York Times bestseller. A lot of the other books have been New York Times bestsellers as well. Like it just keeps going and going, and we feel very blessed is really a word, like about being able to create our own Star Wars epic and have it be embraced this way. So I'm anytime I get a chance to thank people, I I do it. So I'm very grateful to anyone here who's been reading it and paying attention to it. And there's a lot, much more cool stuff to come. So if there's anything you want to ask about, I mean, I guess we have 5 minutes left or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
left.
Actually, Charles, I've got a question, and it kind of segs to High Republic as well. Do you feel more of a burden or the weight of every creative decision? Do you feel it more when you're dealing with characters that you've kind of created from the ground up, as in, as with the High Republic, or do you feel that with some of the characters that are beloved since the 70s? What's more stressful to you? Obviously you feel comfortable now at this point in your career working with Star Wars that you feel like you have everything, all the voices down, but there's got to be some, because you're a fan and because you have loved these characters and feel like they're more than just characters, you must feel a responsibility also to getting them right. What's more burdensome to you? Like, what gives you more stress at night, writing for the older established characters or the High Republic folks?
I mean, I think they're very different tasks in a way. And I get this question a lot because I do a lot of my own original storytelling too, right? Like I just turned in my 4th novel. Actually, if you haven't ever read any of my novels other than Light of the Jedi, check them out. There's The Oracle Year and Anyone. They're both out there. They're great. Find them on Amazon. Or your local independent bookstore. Also great. But I think that with the High Republic, we have more like Markian Ro, right? Like Markian Ro is a character that I got to...
For pronouncing it the way it needs to be pronounced.
Yeah, that's it, Markian Ro. But that's a character that I introduced and then built in Light of the Jedi, and then now the other creators are doing things with him, and it's been great. But at the same time, we get to make those choices in a way that we really do not get to do with, say, Luke Skywalker or Leia. So it just feels different. There's a different level of freedom. But at the same time, when you're working with like Elzar Mann or Avar Kriss or Buryaga or Pan Eta or any of these characters, we also don't have the 40 years of love that people have for Luke Skywalker. So it's right. You have to really bring your AAA game, not just your A game, but like your A+++ game to make sure that these characters resonate. And we all have, and we all care about them. And that's really the stress, is like, knowing that whatever you make, like Markian Ro is another great example. Like Markian Ro has to be different from, but also be able to stand alongside Darth Vader and Palpatine and Darth Maul and Kylo Ren. And he can't be the same, but he's got to be compelling. Yeah. So right. I guess that's the stress, knowing that in some ways, I wouldn't say competing with, but you're being measured against the amazing stuff that's come before.
Yeah, I'm really curious to know maybe in the last minute or two that we have, you might get this question sometimes, like you're writing in the books and the comics and such, but all these great stories, if Kathleen Kennedy were to approach you and say, these are really good, what you've written so far, what do you think about taking one of these stories, adapting it into film and bringing it to that audience? Is there a story either in High Republic or in all the stories that you've written that you really like to see adapted to film, or would it be just start from scratch? I want to do something completely different that we haven't seen before.
That's an interesting question. And I'm gonna drill. There are a lot of questions in there that I'm just gonna drill down to. Would you rather write an original story for film and TV or have something adapted that you've already done? I sort of had something adapted that I did, like the Lego Terrifying Tales Halloween special adapted in some ways Rise of Kylo Ren. Ren showed up and so on. And that was super, super fun to see how they approached it, how they did different things, and seeing the design that Will Slany and I came up with for Ren on TV. It was awesome. But I think, honestly, that's a really good question. I don't know. I could see Light of the Jedi making just a fantastic, fantastic film, and it would be amazing to see that. But at the same time, I also, if Kathy Kennedy or Lucasfilm were to call and ask me to do that, I think there's a lot, like I would want to say, okay, this is a TV show. Or a film. And this is an opportunity to do things that are, maybe have never been seen before in Star Wars. People don't know, surprise people. And the thing is, if we're adapting Dark Lord of the Sith, if we're adapting, Poe Dameron, if we're adapting this or that, you know, like people know because those stories exist. And I think one of the most potent weapons in the arsenal of any storyteller is surprise. And so I guess my absolute gold standard, what I would like to do is to tell a story in the High Republic that is not a direct adaptation, using characters where we don't know how they end, but is in that era. I think that would be just amazing, or possibly something after 9, maybe if that ever opened up. I don't know, but something where you can use all the power of the mythology, all of the tropes, all of that, but also not not be beholden to things like, well, this is the moment we saw Luke Skywalker die, so we know that happens. You know, right. That's what I would say.
If I could ask one thing, a lot of the times, my partner Dan and I will preach how important comics are to Star Wars storytelling. We call it the connective tissue, and our goal with our show Quick Shot is to get people hyped to hit your comic shop or Comixology and grab these comics, because it's fantastic storytelling for Star Wars. And I was wondering if there's something you could say on that, just to kind of. What are your thoughts on that, and anything out there that could help get people into the comics more?
Man, look, I think first of all, that's the Lord's work right there. I think that comics are an incredible. They're as close to, if you like the movies, the comics are as close to the movies as you're gonna get probably without being the movies, because you get the art, you get the imagery, and you get the characters and the dialogue and all that stuff. So it feels like a movie on paper. Also, we get to tell the story because within film and TV, like there are so many constraints, not least of all the actors, right? Like because Carrie Fisher, she's not going to be in stuff anymore, unfortunately, sadly. So finding a way to tell stories about Leia comes with a lot of complications. But in comics, you can get those stories. And if you get the right storytellers, they feel exactly like the Leia that you know and love. Or Luke, in time periods we didn't get to see him doing amazing stuff. Like, the comics are being created and have been created since that relaunch in 2014 by some of the very best talent in all of the medium, right? Like some of the best writers and artists in all of comics have been doing the Star Wars comics. They're not like also rans. So when you think about all of these incredible directors and writers and talent that are attached to the films and the TV, it's the same thing in the comics. The comics have the best of this entire medium. So you're excited about Taika Waititi making a Star Wars film, or Rian Johnson, whatever. We have the Taika and the Ryan of comics making the comics. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the entire crew. So, it's very easy to Google what are the best Star Wars comics that have come out. Just look at those and pick up a couple. And it's, you don't like it, you don't like it. But I think if you don't give it a shot, man, you're missing out. You're just missing out.
Yeah, absolutely. Charles, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. This has been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you so much, man.